Welcome back, Six Rings Canes and Canes fan. We got something new for you here today. We're going to thank our sponsors first. Let's give a shout out to Manscaped here. Obviously, they do some great work with us. It's not the summer anymore, but it is the fall, and there's nothing like just being nice and clean and fresh for the fall. Now that we've got the holidays coming up, you want to make sure that you and the ladies are getting along, right? So you want to make sure that keep everything below the waist perfect and ready to go. So that's why we want to thank Manscaped, because they do offer some really amazing packages, just like the Performance Package 4.0 has everything you need to prepare for that fall body, for that fall time, for that winter time, for the holidays, baby. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is absolutely fantastic. The Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer. Just used it a couple of days ago, I'll leave it there. And then, of course, the Crop Preserver, the Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Toner. They even give you some performance boxer briefs and a travel bag to hold all your goodies in. Make sure you guys go to manscaped.com, type in the code 5RSN, and they will give you 20% off plus free shipping on anything that you do purchase with Manscaped. Again, it's manscaped.com, code word 5RSN, the number 5RSN. You'll get 20% off plus free shipping and handling. Get ready, boys and girls. Here we go. It's a Six Rings Cane show coming at you now. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Six Rings Cane show on a new night, Monday night now, baby. We're really excited, actually, to have Eric McLean on the show here, college football analyst, co-host of the Huddle. Coach, yes! All right!
First touchdown of the year.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a six-ring cane show. Can't forget the name, though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ, break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real Portland live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. We see the six-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the Six Rings Cane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Well, how about that?
I love it.
Yeah, buddy. Welcome, everybody. By the way, shout out to Music by Mercy for the beat, for the lyrics, for the song. Did an absolutely great job, and Vish with the montage.
I love that we had the Dono exit too.
The Dono exit. I'm sorry, but that last little scene of ours was hilarious. I love that. What's wrong with us? Because we're Miami Hurricanes fans. I love that.
I had to put it. I did make sure there was no music going. We just got up here on that one.
That was great, man. That was great. Welcome to the Six Rings Cane show, ladies and gentlemen. Joined by Vish, DJ, and Larry Bluestein. Blue is back in the building. What's going on, fellas?
Doing great.
Good to be back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're a couple of days off of a tough one, right? A tough loss to the University of North Carolina. We'll obviously get into it. We've got a lot of things to cover today. Some good. We'll probably say more decent than good. Bad, and of course, the downright ugly as well. So we've got a lot to cover. As you guys well know, I mean, if anybody was just remotely alive during the game, which, by the way, Rob, bring it, baby. I want you guys to bring it. Bring all the knee-jerk reactions. Let's do it tonight. I want to hear it all. In case you guys missed it, TVD had, quite frankly, one of his best games, right? I mean, it was actually, he did really well. He kind of showed the TVD that we wanted to see all throughout the season. Finally figured it out. Whatever the case was, whatever it was, whether it's communicating with Coach Ponce and Coach Gaddis more, whether it was the wide receivers stepping up, whether it was the whole entire team stepping up from an offensive perspective, it was nice. It was nice to see TVD get back and make some nice passes and do really well. Gary, what's up, Gary? I must be delusional because it felt better about the team after the game than I did before. Nah, man, you're not delusional. You're really not delusional. There's a lot of fans. I mean, we're all delusional, right? But whereas there's a lot of fans that I would probably say feel that way, right? Okay, so let me kind of backtrack. There's probably about 30% of the fans that feel that way. The other 70 are doom and gloom, and it's the end of the world. Mario Cristobal needs to get fired, and we need to dismantle this whole entire team. That's just it's a knee-jerk reaction of us Canes fans, right? I get it. But the fact of the matter is we are who we are, right?
I think one of the issues is the people that are quite frankly out of their minds are the loud ones. So they have an outsized, I would say, effect on the environment in which we're operating. I think most people understood this is going to take some time. Not, obviously we shouldn't have lost to Middle Tennessee. Like there's things that shouldn't have happened, right?
Nobody saw that one coming.
But I think overall everyone's like, all right, keep a calm head here. A lot of season left, and we're in year one of a project here. And saying that does not drive traffic on Twitter. It doesn't, it doesn't get the traction as fire everyone and shouting, and then that's what kind of gets amplified.
Listen, it's not to say that I wasn't pissed off at the end of the game, right? Of course I was pissed. You get an opportunity to march down the field and either kick a field goal or put it in the end zone, and of course that last play, we'll talk about it a little bit, but before we kind of get too deep into it, I want to start off with you, Blue. We haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, man, so we're excited to have you back on. I know you were at the game. You kind of saw what was going on out there. What's your take on this loss and how, I guess what do you take from it, right? We obviously saw the defense struggle a little bit in the first half. They put it together, made some adjustments in the second half. You saw some players that were not looking very good, kind of looked a little bit better in the second half, so on and so forth. Obviously, the offense had it rolling from a passing perspective. Their passing game was rolling, couldn't get the running game rolling. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on how everything went, aside from the loss, right? Obviously, it's not concerning, but it is what it is. Talk to me a little bit of how you felt about that game.
Well, to be honest with you, it started out like same old thing. We're going to just give in to the fact that North Carolina is 4-1 and they're a good football team. And, but it turned out to be a pretty good game. It really did. I mean, Miami rallied. They were in the game all the way. They kept not closing the door on the contest. And you know what? I had some harsh things to say before the game. I mean, in all the interviews that I had, I was deeply disappointed after losing to Middle Tennessee State, because no matter how bad you are, that should never happen. Or no matter how much you're growing as a team, that should never happen, especially because they turn around and look like crap the following week against University of Texas San Antonio. And then they lost again. And I'm thinking, wow, but you know what? The whole thing is I was waiting, and I kept saying the whole game, and you and I sat in a press conference 2 weeks before, after that Middle Tennessee game. And I was just waiting after the game for Mario Cristobal to come in there and take the blame again, because I would have jumped up and got in his face, because you can't do that. You can't keep doing that. He can't. It's been 30 years since he put on a uniform, so he can't play the damn game. There's nobody, and I watched so many games, there's nobody that gets that team, their team, more fired up than him. Nick Saban's a fuddy dud on the sideline. He doesn't say anything. I watched Stephen Norvell and all these, but I'll tell you what, he's into every damn thing. He's on that sideline, even when things were going wrong and they were down. Listen, there's no hesitation that within 2 years, Miami's going to be in the mix to be one of the better teams in the country. Not a top 4 team, but one of the better teams, because they have all the elements in place. I talked to all the recruits, everybody that I could talk to. And no matter what anybody wants to say, and I kept hearing everybody say the last couple of days on all these different programs, it's going to kill Miami. It's not going to kill Miami. These guys are all sitting there rubbing their hands together and go, oh my God, they got nobody can catch the ball. I'm going to be there next year, and I'm going to play Power 5 football. I can move into linebacker and play, a role at linebacker. So forget about that stuff that they're going to lose any kids. If anything, they'll gain people, because everybody wants to be a part of it. And I think the smart people see, guys, how close Miami is. I mean, there's a few plays here and there from beating Texas A&M. We throw the Middle Tennessee State game out because I just don't think the mindset was there, because there's just no way, like I said, that no way it should happen. I was like they said, I was deeply encouraged after that game, not to go to a, not to win 11 games or anything, but just as a team and picking each other up and being down some key people, especially on the offensive line where that's not a deep place, and how they pass protect. Yeah, I was a little bitter at the running game because I sat there and talked to one of the coaches on Friday night at the St. Thomas game. And I said, listen, you've got to have Thad Franklin in the 20s. I don't care what you say, because you're going to throw somebody like Parrish, you're going to throw somebody like Rooster in there, and they're going to get hurt because they're not tackle-to-tackle runners. They're the type of guys you need in space, get out of the backfield. But you've got Thad Franklin for a reason. This is a 6'2", 230-pound guy that inside the 20s should be punishing people, and he would have. But again, never listened. And he even said, okay, I'm going to do it. And he never did it. He ran 2 damn times. And, that to me, especially when you see guys that again, and I illustrated it last week, everybody in the press box, I said, when they snap the ball, there's 9 guys with 1 guy coming up, 10 guys in the box. I don't care if you're Jim Brown, you're not going to run the ball. So to me, Miami wasn't backing anybody up. And then when they were, you look at, they didn't respect Miami's running game. They really didn't. I mean, when Tyler got hot, and started throwing up field a little bit, they still didn't. But that'll come. They just got to play smarter. Their play calling sometimes befuddles me. I just don't understand it. But you know what? On the overall, I walked out of that game and I go, you know what? I want to be angry. And I want to start, throwing people under the bus, but there's really nobody to throw under the bus. I finished it, guys, with you are what you are. You can improve on the spaces that you have, but you are what you are right now. You have no depth really anywhere, and that's the fact. I mean, And all that said, they're a 7-point favorite this week at Virginia Tech for homecoming. I mean, come on. That's all that crazy. At homecoming at Blacksburg, and they're a 7-point favorite. So evidently somebody sees a lot in this team. But I will tell you this. I've watched a lot of football. I've seen the past teams. I've seen the past coaches. And no one brings more energy than Mario Cristobal anywhere in the country. I've never seen anybody bring the energy that he has from start to finish. You and I saw him in the warm-ups against Middle Tennessee State, and he was everywhere. But you know what? That didn't stop. He did that during the entire game. You could see him running down the sidelines and getting in people's face in a good way, but trying to amp them up, trying to give them some of his energy. And they had it. They just made a few mistakes early, buried themselves early on. And listen, North Carolina is not a bad team, guys. They're pretty good. I mean, they may not be the greatest team on earth, but they've got dudes. And I think what they did by, limiting May, and May, look at his stats against everybody else. So there were some really good things. Yeah, there were some bad things, but there will be bad things all year, maybe even into next year. But they'll get less and less. And yeah, I'm like Vish, you wanted to get into the situation where you wanted to be angry, but I wasn't really angry. I'm accepting slowly that what you have is what you have.
Well, GJ, Blue mentioned something, right, that I think we all kind of think about, and we say, yeah, even with how quote unquote bad. And by the way, big shout out to Chugmo Beer in the house with the $4.99 dono. Ready for a great show, guys. I think third down is a big problem. Canes are 25 of 64 on third down from game 2 through game 5. That's 39%. Those are drive killers. Go Canes. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, man. I agree. That's a great point. Also, I'm assuming it's Ranger Zulu. Too many people forget how badly the potential sanctions over our head killed our recruiting, which ruined our performance, which killed our recruiting, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, it was a vicious cycle for a while there. So totally get that, man. Again, just going back to it, DJ, Blue mentioned something, right, that I think was interesting that we all saw. Like, we made some mistakes. Look, probably one of the biggest mistakes was the fumble when we were going in to score, right, on fourth down. After you get the first down, you fumble the ball, right? That's a potential opportunity to score there. Borregales misses a field goal on a high snap, and he could have kicked that from 70 yards down. He would have made it, right? He had all the leg in the world for that. He just missed it a little wide left. And then you've got some other potential opportunities. The goal line that you had 4 downs to score a touchdown. You can't punch it in, right? So you've got, with all that being said, DJ, we lost by 3 points. We were down 3 points, but with potentially the opportunity to tie it or win it there at the end after we stopped them on offense. So what did you take from this that was good, bad, or ugly, or all of it? And moving forward, where can the Canes kind of build off of this from?
Well, the biggest thing I took after, the bye week speculation was the play of Tyler Van Dyke. And I know it may seem like an easy thing to kind of notice, but he looked very decisive in his decision making. He got the ball out quick. He looked comfortable. It looked like he had good command of the offense and a good grasp of where his, receivers were and the routes that they were running. And we hadn't really seen that confidence yet so far this this season. But this was a game where Van Dyke had to keep up with the likes of Drake May and, the UNC offense. And we kind of talked about it, how Van Dyke needed to bring his best game. And I think he really did that. He had 3 touchdowns and an interception, which I believe was on the very final drive of the game. So I guess what I'm saying is my biggest takeaway here is that Tyler Van Dyke looked really good. And that's, very encouraging for the Miami Hurricanes moving forward. He looked like who we saw at the tail end of last year.
Vish, just elaborate a little bit more on the play of TVD this past weekend. A lot of people, I think there's still, and by the way, this is what I was talking about. Like, I don't want to hear anybody, talking trash about TVD anymore. Like, we need to stop. Like, we all, and he knew it, but we all said it. He wasn't playing good. He was playing like crap. He knew it. Everybody knew it. And he put together a really, really, really great showing. One of his best showings. I mean, we're talking about 42 of 57, 496 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think the guy did absolutely everything that he could, all right, to keep that team in the game. And yes, you're right, Gary, that ball was tipped at the line on the interception. And regardless, I mean, he's trying to make a play there. He's trying to get him in field goal position. He's working the whole entire field. Give him a break, whatever. I'm not gonna be pissed off because he threw the interception. And it's not like that lost us the game. So I really want to kind of talk about this, the TV's play this past weekend, and just the overall play of the offense as a whole.
Yeah, just real quick to address what Ringer Zulu said. I think that was definitely the case. That was, I mean, if you were in the stadium, you could see, everyone thought he was out of bounds.
Are we
whether or not
talking
he
about
was
Skinner?
Yeah, whether or not he was, I do think, fair criticism. He didn't really fight to get out of bounds, which was insane. Right. Like if he had, I think he incidentally went out of bounds, but they ruled forward progress. If he had fought for the out of bounds line, he would have gone out of bounds clearly, and there's no way they would have wound it. But just the way that played out.
It's a freshman mistake from a guy who,
which is like Lou said, this is a growing process. You play freshmen, so this is going to happen sometimes. They're not going to have that situational awareness. Right. So, but I think the way that played out was as a worst case scenario. If he clearly gets tackled inbounds, we're running back to the line. The officials grabbing the ball, like they rush with the offense to try to help the offense get the next snap off, and everyone's kind of in that mode. Everyone stopped. He was out of bounds. Everyone stopped. The officials weren't really moving. And then the other guy comes in and waves the clock. And then it's just like, you could hear like the air go out of the building. Like, it was like, and everyone panicked, including the team. We rushed up to the line. We snapped it. I don't even know what play we were trying to run. And like Gary said, the ball got tipped. But that was the worst way for that to happen. Because if you clearly get tackled in bounds, everyone's rushing at the snap off. If you clearly get out of bounds, you stop. In this case, everyone stopped because he looked out of bounds and then it wasn't. So definitely don't fault him for that. It was more of, I mean, we're snake bit at this point. We look at all the little things that keep going wrong, but that was certainly one of them where, even just getting tackled in bounds where you know you're in bounds is much better than what happened there.
Right.
In terms of his overall play, I thought he looked confident again, which is the big thing. He was zipping the ball in there. The other thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, there were always some bad drops, but the receivers did make catches on balls in their catch space. And what I mean by is not perfect, maybe a little bit behind, maybe a little up, and they were finally catching those. You got to help your quarterback out. That helped a lot. Helps to grow his confidence. Now he knows he doesn't have to make a perfect pass. He can throw it a lot more confidently. And you saw that happen throughout the game. Like, and that zip matters. Like the touchdown to Keyshawn Smith. Like if he doesn't throw a missile there, it's not a touchdown. And Lord knows our red zone offense, so you don't want to get tackled there, right? So, I mean, that once he grew into the game and had that confidence, everything came together. And he was throwing it confidently. He was fitting it into coverage. When he was slightly off, receivers for them, it's all right. The receivers made the tougher catches, and they dropped a couple of easy ones in critical situations. But, that helped a lot. We were talking about that a lot the last few weeks. Like, his receivers got to help him, too. They did. Like, I know Mallory had that one big drop, which actually, didn't really matter because we converted the fourth and kept it moving. But that was the one where
he had that whole side of the field open for him. He was going to get another at least 20.
Yeah, but that ended up being the one where Rooster fumbled, so we still should have at least gotten points on that drive. But he made several catches where the ball was kind of off target, and he was snatching it. He went up the middle on that seam route in between the safety and linebacker, made a tough catch. Like those are the plays we haven't been catching.
Yep.
And then that gets your quarterback confidence. So it all worked. Now the running game did not, but TBD was awesome, and it was the shot in the arm we kind of needed. And unfortunately, it didn't result in a win, but he was great, and I think that's the quarterback we all knew was there.
Oh yeah,
so it was just good to see that.
Oh, it's a great segue because you mentioned how other things weren't working, like the running game, right? The running game. And by the way, shout out to Les. What's going on, Les? Back in the building. Exactly what I mentioned earlier. 4 tries from the 2-yard line, and we couldn't score. Can't get 2 yards.
Just real quick on that point, I've seen a lot of criticism of Gaddis's play calling overall.
No, I think the play calling was fine there. Listen, if you're coached by Mario Cristobal, you're going to run the ball at the 5-yard line 4 times.
What I will say in that instance, the one criticism I do, because a lot of the stuff he gets criticized for is like, I mean, Knighton I think it was the first or second drive, drops the first down, then the one we missed the field goal on. Like, I mean, you're still moving. That's not a bad play call. In fact, we've been asking get Knighton out there on the edge and throw it to him. We did, and he was a great play call.
He catches that ball to first down.
Yeah. So that would have been the first down. So I mean, those. But I will say the one thing is on second down on that goal line sequence when we snuck the ball and got like 1.5 yards and came like an inch short, just sneak it again. Like I don't understand why we handed it off 5 yards deep and lost 2 yards.
Yeah.
Like to me, that was the one thing. I'm like, if you can sneak the ball, it is very difficult not to get a 0.5 yard at least. And the fact that we just sneaked it successfully and almost scored it, like they literally was like just inches away.
Well, we made it difficult, clearly, right?
Yeah, just sneak it again, get the touchdown. I understand everything everyone's saying is correct. Like that defending is like, yes, you should be able to get an inch handing it off to your running back. You should be able to win up front. You got to establish that attitude. I think at this point we recognize we got trouble down there. If you think you could sneak the ball and just do it. I don't have issues going for it there. To me, it's fine. You trying to, it's not a game it's a game with a lot of up and down, is going to happen and did happen. So I had no issues going for it. The only play call I had a problem with was the third down after we snuck it successfully on second down to get just a breath away from the goal line. Just sneak it again and get your touchdown. There was no reason to hand it off to Parrish back in the backfield like that.
And by the way, which I'm
sorry, and just the other thing real quick on that point, then I'm going to shut up. I think we tend to focus on Miami, right? Of course, because that's our team. If you recall, UNC drove down to the 8th and bizarrely went for it on like 4th and goal from the 8 and missed it after we dropped the interception on the play before. So, I mean, that canceled out. If we had ended up winning, their fans definitely would have been like, "What the hell did we go for that for? Why did we just kick the field goal?"
I was watching the television broadcast, and they said that Mac Brown relied a lot on analytics, and they actually showed like a guy on the sideline with like a bunch of charts and numbers and things. And I never thought of Mac Brown as an analytics guy, but I guess you learn something new every day.
I think
So,
a lot of teams are doing that now, a lot more than they used to before.
but
Um,
analytics tell you to go for it on 4th and 8. Like I thought that was risky from the get go, and they did it a lot on Saturday.
they did. That was a crazy play.
No, they did it a lot, and they converted some, which I'm sure we should talk about our inability to get off the field.
Yeah.
But that one in
Oh, yeah.
particular, it was like they just almost threw an interception on 3rd down. It was 4th and goal from like the 8 or 9. I thought their kicker was injured, to be honest. And he came out later and started drilling field goals. It was like, okay, it's not.
Unbelievable. You mentioned something earlier, right, about us not being able to at least get a couple yards. Okay, and by the way, it's not for them not running the ball. I know a lot of people see it that that the TV threw the ball 57 times. It's not like we ran the ball 10 times. We ran the ball 24 times. Okay, and people don't realize we ran the ball 24 times, and so it looks very lopsided. Which yes, in the grand scheme of things, it was lopsided. But we tried to run the ball. We ran it 24 times. We didn't do jack diddly with it. Okay, so you get to a point where if they can't run the football and you're firing on all cylinders, throwing the ball around, then that's what they're going to do, and they're going to rely on that. And look, it made sense. It worked out for them to a certain degree. Do I wish that they would have run the ball better? Yes, and this is what I want to understand, Blue. Like this football team. Okay, let's talk about UNC's defense. Has been given up, has been getting gashed in the running game by everybody, right? Notre Dame ran for over 280 yards. Georgia State ran for like 175, I think. It was something crazy like that. App State, everybody ran against them. And then you got Miami all of a sudden, who's supposed to have a pretty damn good run game, run for 42 total yards. Are you concerned about the line? And maybe not so much pass protection, because you saw that pass protection was decent. Okay, I think they only sacked TVD one time the whole game. That run blocking scheme, for one reason or another, has digressed enormously. Not only that, the only guy right now, and I know who you're going to mention. The only guy right now that seems to be doing a really good job running the football is Henry Parrish. We've seen a little bit of a regression in Jalen Knighton's play as well. But I really want to focus on the offensive line here. Is the offensive line a concern for you when it comes to run blocking, or is it just a matter of them kind of putting it all together, kind of understanding their run scheme a little better, and against tougher opponents, right? Because now it's ACC play. So what do they have to do? Is it a matter of getting some other guys on the field now? We saw some injuries as well. Right guard with Oluwashun and Ja'Kai Clark, as well as Jonathan Dennis came in and played. What's the issue with maybe just the right side? I don't know. I just think it's the offensive line as a whole.
What you said is 100% right. North Carolina is not a great defensive team. So instead of channeling, the running game and giving up chunks of yards, they try to stop the run, and they stayed in that defense all game. Like I said, we were watching them from the press box snapping the ball with 9 guys in the box. So evidently that's what they were out to do. And even when he started getting hot with the passing game, they never really, it never became an issue. And that's why he almost threw for 500 yards, because I thought, I went to a college, UNLV, and when I was there, they played basketball, really good basketball, and they never cared about what the other team did. They just outscored them. So I think North Carolina's mindset is they have a really good offense, a high-powered offense. They have really good, kids to catch the ball, and a really good running game. And I think that was their mindset all game. So it's a scheme. I don't think, and the whole thing is Miami really kept running the ball, even though they knew. I mean, as soon as any of the running backs guys, whoever it was, got the ball, there was 6-7 jerseys right there to greet them. So it doesn't really matter how they're blocking. You could have the Dallas Cowboy offensive line, and if your defense is stacking the box, that means you got 9 against 5. Come on. I mean, you're never going to really win any battles unless you pop one out. So that's why I said, instead of so you got to credit Gaddis. So he really, even though he felt he had to run the ball, his forte on that day is they go, you know what? And I'm sure Mario got with him at halftime and said, listen, they're giving us the passing game. They're giving us the upfield. If we could get Mallory out a little bit more, and he did. They targeted him 11 times. He caught 9 balls. And I'm sure that was their game plan, because never before have they targeted a Mallory so many times in a game. Yeah, he drops a lot, but that's him. Okay. But that's what happened, guys. You can't say anything negative towards the offensive line. They're doing what they can do, but it doesn't matter how many stars they had up front. They were outmanned. They were outmanned up front, and I think North Carolina kept to that scheme. They probably came in thinking, you know what, Miami's only way, especially because, the only reference point they really have is going off the Middle Tennessee game where Tyler looked like crap. I mean, so they're saying, you know what, the only way they're going to even do anything against us is to run, and they never came out of it because they had the lead all the way. So they figured, you know what, they're going to pass, let them pass. I just don't want them to run on us, and we're going to have to drop our – and they got average linebackers. Their linebackers aren't great. They never really made many plays. So by moving them up to stop the run, they let their safeties and their corners do all the work, and they didn't do too good a job. That's what I'm saying. Miami, if they went and let's say they moved back, maybe Miami would have done as well in the passing game. And that's the only that's the only thing that I have to say, as far as that's concerned. I won't jump on them because all we were doing and all Gaddis, you can't give anybody, you can't take away from the fact that, they didn't all of a sudden Saturday morning drop this game plan. That's what they spent from, last Sunday all the way, or even because they had the bye week, they probably, took some time the week before and broke down North Carolina and said, listen, this is what they do. And if you look back at the Notre Dame game, Notre Dame was running on them because of the fact that they were backing people up and they were running a 4-3. So if they run a 4-3, that's 7 guys. And then they were dropping their linebackers because Notre Dame ran, out of the backfield. That's what I said. Again, they didn't take it. They did a wheel route once or twice. But that's what I'm saying. He didn't mix it up at all. But, and I can't fault him because he was throwing upfield with regularity. His tight end was getting open. His wide receivers were catching the ball and they were getting open. So there really wasn't a need, to other than I was really adamant about in between. Listen, what you do from the 20 to 20 is you open up the field. And then Thad Franklin's not an open field runner. But inside the 20, he serves a really good purpose because he's going to get you 4 or 5 yards, but at the same time, he's going to wear down the linebackers and the safeties. They're not. See, you could see when they ran tackle to tackle with either Rooster or Parrish, they just weren't winning. They were getting beat up, and every time, and they go back to the huddle, I'm thinking to myself, what? I said, if that's their game plan, that's fine. I'm not going to yell because they spent 5 days game planning this very thing. They knew they were going to stack the box. They knew that because, it's just like I watched a high school game a couple of weeks ago, and one of the teams kept making plays after play. And then one of the kids who made a play, he looked over at the coach. He goes, we watch film. So and that's what I'm saying. If you watch enough film, especially Miami's tendencies, you're going to load things up because Tyler Van Dyke wasn't playing very well. He played a good game in the Texas A&M game, but his receivers didn't. In the Middle Tennessee game, he was horrible. So that's all they had to go on, guys. As a coach, you can only go on reference points. You can't go on, last year. Well, it's not the same personnel as last year. So I think that they went in thinking, I think Mac Brown went in thinking, listen, let them beat us with the pass. Because you know what? They came into the ball game thinking, wow, either he's going to throw it at their feet or behind him like he did in Middle Tennessee game, or his receivers are going to drop him. So let's just stick to this game plan. And it almost cost them the game, to stick with it because, like you said, he threw for almost 500 yards. But I'm of the firm belief that I'm not going to blame Miami's offensive line. Like you said, Jazz, they're depleted. They don't have a lot of depth there, but they're doing what they could do. I mean, if you notice, too, there's not a lot of holding penalties this year. There were a bunch of them, and they're not getting blown back into the running backs. It's just that when they're met at the line of scrimmage, the running backs don't advance the ball. Yeah. And,
they're not getting a lot of push. They're not getting
not at all,
back,
but not at all. But again,
and actually, Mario talked about that a little bit, and I think that resonated with me about how it looked like, and I could. My seats are like right almost at midfield, but pretty high up. So I get like the skybox view sort of. And there were a lot of plays that looked like they were there. We're just closed on them. And we were not doing a good job holding our blocks, especially not just the offensive line on the edge. Our receivers got out physical by the defensive backs. That's why those bubble screens into the flat weren't working. I would see UNC run the same calls when they had the ball against similar alignments, and their receivers were owning our DBs and they were getting 7-8 yards, and we were getting nothing. So we got to get more physical there. Now, again, part of that is we don't have, it's great to put freshman receivers out there because you have to, and put these young guys out there. They have not had the time to physically develop like some of your older guys that are frankly injured right now. So, but we got, I felt pushed around a little bit there. The other thing I will say where the running game was effective is, Les is asking why didn't we throw to set up the run? Well, like Blue said, we threw and they didn't adjust to the throws. We kept throwing. Like you start us up the run, assuming they're going to back off and open up those runs. They never did. They just kept throwing.
Yep.
But I think one reason we kept running anyway, because we did, as Jess said, we ran a lot of plays in this game. One of the reasons we kept running is one of our defenses was to keep their offense off the field. And we did that. Those long drives where we'd shoot ourselves in the foot did serve a purpose in terms of UNC not getting the ball as much.
No, you're right.
The game had a weird rhythm. Like they also then start sitting on the ball too. Like that, their last drive before we made that stop at the end and got the ball back, 8-minute drive. UNC does not do 8-minute drives, but they're like, we need to hold this ball. And they were able to do it, which again, we can talk about our defense a little bit, but I feel like both teams came in thinking we got to play in the 30s or 40s. And as the game evolved, they realized, no, this game's going to the 20s.
Yep.
And they slowly kind of adjusted. Both teams started playing slower. The game developed its own rhythm. But I do think our running game did at least keep the clock moving, keep us on the field longer. You don't want to throw 3 incompletions and give the ball right back to UNC. They'll put up 21 points in a hurry, and then you're done. Yeah. So I think our offense actually, for all the mistakes they made where they didn't get points when they probably should have. If you look at the yardage total compared to the points, that shouldn't happen. And it's like the third time that's happened this year. So that's why I think there's actually a lot of promise.
I think the truth
that'll
is
eventually catch up.
If you put it all together, right? Like we still haven't had a complete game, obviously. But if you put the running game together, if you put the passing game together, how we've been doing in some games and some others, and then of course on the defensive side of the ball, which we'll get to now, if you do what they did in the second half, not only that, like if you do, I know a lot of people are talking a lot of trash about that defense, right? About how bad we were or how much we got beat. First of all, we didn't get beat a lot. Let me explain myself. Number one. Number two, we gave us 6 points in the second half, and we held one of the best offenses in the country to under 30 points. Nobody has done that all year. And we knew that this was going to be like this, though. We knew they were going to score points, right? It's not like we were going to come out here and say, well, we're gonna shut them down, right? We're gonna shut them out. Drake May, pretty good. Had a decent game, but again, only thrown 1 interception all season long. We picked two of his passes off. Okay, so I think we did a good job all around. I think the first half was a little bit different than the second half. Second half showed, the defense played a lot better, made some adjustments. But before we get to that, I got one more thing on offense. Well, I got 2 more things on offense that I want to ask you guys. Okay, the first thing is, and this one had me completely, for lack of a better word, flabbergasted. Right on, there's Jazz using big words, baby. Hey, I was completely dumbfounded by. All of
really? You went back to dumbfounded after throwing out flabbergasted?
Yeah, whatever. I don't know the difference. Listen.
We got to judge.
You just executed our red zone offense. You moved it right up there, and then you switched it.
That doesn't apply to me because I don't know what the hell I'm saying.
We know.
Larry, Blue, talk to me about this. Like, were you completely confused as to why the hell we only saw Kobe Young in like the last 5 minutes of the game, and he looked like the best wide receiver on the team? What the hell was that all about? Because I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Well, there's got to be a beginning to everything, Jazz. I mean, and Mario said this in the second, in the press conference. He said, because people were asking, hey, where has he been? And he said, listen, he's a young guy coming in, still learning, like Skinner, but you could tell.
So you put the guy that's still learning all of a sudden in the last 5 minutes and he balls out.
Well, they had no choice.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not like they have options, I mean, but that's how you listen. That's how you make your way, and that's how you catch the attention. And I could tell you 2 guys who will see significant playing time the rest of the year. Colby and Jaleel Skinner. I mean, both of them guys. Remember what I said all the time, that everybody in the press box the other day, everybody's talking, Corey Flagg sucks, but yet he's leading the team in tackles by 30 tackles. Come on. So to me, it's all about production. And I don't care what they look like. I don't care how big they are. But Jaleel Skinner and Colby are two guys that produce. And that's right now, you could bet this whole week they're running with the ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely are, because that's how Mario works. And he was really, really, I mean, everybody dwells on the ball that what's his name dropped, but he had talked about Mallory, and he said, listen, Will Mallory kept us in the game with a lot of his catches, so we can't just single. He says there's nobody's in any place here to start pointing fingers at any one person. And yeah, I can understand, but listen, having a wide receiver coach is going to make the kid catch the ball. It's going to make him better from a technique standpoint. But my point is, either you got it or you don't, and that's the whole thing. And you could bet, and that's why I agree with what Vish said. You look at the Texas A&M game where they just, if you look at the stats, Miami should have won by 20. Okay, and then you look at this game where, at one point, I think in the first half, North Carolina had 160 more yards than Miami. So, because, I was looking at the scoreboard and I was saying, Jesus, they got like 309. Miami's got 140. But then all of a sudden, in the second half, it evened up, and Miami, they were pretty close in offensive yards at the end. But that's what I'm saying, guys. You know what? Yeah, we want to criticize, and we want to say, we want to play Sunday morning quarterback and say, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. It's obvious what they don't do well. And you could say, oh, they need a receiver, or this guy's got to go, all you want, but it's not going to change this team. Jake comes in at quarterback the week before, and he does real well, but people were still dropping some of his passes too. It all evens off in the end. My only thing is, can't be too hard on this team. I was at the beginning, but then I kind of took a step back and looked at the personnel. Manny Diaz left this roster as one of the worst rosters they've ever had. It's a terrible roster. It was at the beginning of the year. And if it wasn't for the portal, and even that was addressed, I think, in his press conference today, as I listened to it, somebody says, are you going to do the old fashioned, let's get the freshmen and let's recruit the freshmen, or are you going to use the portal? And he said, well, you look at the guys we have, it wasn't for the portal, we would be in worse shape, in a lot of these games.
He knows he's got a big project here.
Yeah, and
sure.
that did address some of Les's questions. So, I mean, you say he continues to state he's been here a few months. So I don't know what he could have addressed the roster. If he's saying the same thing in year 3, I'm gonna have a problem. But right now, it's like, yes,
no, he'll never. But that's the thing, Bish. You know what? Mario Cristobal is not an excuse guy. You could already tell, and he's going to. I mean, he'll. When you talk to him in the spring, he's going to look back and go, you know what? We just didn't have the personnel to compete with some of these teams. But I think we did our best we could. And I think that's what they're trying to do. At the end, you got to remember, too, we're looking at James Williams and Cam Kinchins as these veteran guys. They're only sophomores. And they're making these huge plays to keep this team in the game. And I think that's and you look at Tyler Van Dyke, second year starting. It's not like we got a 5-year senior. And that's what I'm trying to point out. You don't have a lot of where you have talent. They're not 4 and 5 year guys, or in most cases just 2-year guys. And
but look at some of the best players on this team. Akeem Mesidor, who's rated, I think I saw somewhere, the number 3 defensive end in the country right now, in some sort of rating, some sort of ranking, whatever. He's like a 5th-year guy.
Yeah,
right?
And then you look at guys like Caleb Johnson and Mitchell Agude and these guys like this.
Older guys.
They're guys who have been there, done that. They've already gone through this growing pain stuff somewhere else. So that's why I always used to say the transfer portal is a plus, because you're cutting through that freshman, sophomore, in some case junior, learning curve. and you've got these guys coming on campus, and they didn't strike gold for the first time in 2-3 years at the receiver position, where you had Osborne and then you had Rambo. I mean, that's where you're really missing out too, because you didn't have an opportunity to have that big play guy. I mean, sure, someone's going to make a big play once in a while, but Rambo, what do you have, 80-something catches? Yeah. I mean, there was that one game where he had 12 catches for 170 yards. See, we don't have that guy.
These guys are still developing, and can we get someone like that in a year or two, or maybe next year? Sure, but I tell you what. That transfer portal is going to be hot and heavy next year for wide receivers.
But I do think one of the issues that's kind of like that's permeating the whole team is we're just not making the winning play when we need to, and that's why we're losing.
This team doesn't know how to win. I
think it's now to create this momentum of the number of things that went wrong down the stretch of that game, from even the touchdown they threw at the end of the first half where we hit Luke May, he threw a moon ball up in the air and then it landed on the receiver. We missed 3 tackles. He scores a touchdown. Like, that should be an interception. Right. Like, I don't know what the hell, right? I mean, we can't catch. Obviously, it's not catching a break when you're on an onside kick and the dude just runs up the out of bounds sideline and knocks the ball. Like, I don't know what he was doing. That's not bad luck. That's just, come on, man. But we haven't gotten a bounce. Like, we need something to go your way. It's just not happening. And I think that does weigh on everyone. And I do feel like a lot of the things we're talking about now, where we dropped this critical pass, we missed this critical block, obviously the big fumble. If you start winning games, those plays stop happening too. It's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Once you have that confidence that, hey, it's kind of like when our teams were great, when we get in these tight games, someone's going to make a play and we're going to win.
Yeah.
And you have that confidence. It's almost like the opposite now. Now it's like, what is going to go wrong?
Yeah, I like what someone said, that this is like 2017, but reverse. We're just losing the games now. By the way, and I want to mention, I want to kind of answer Bobby 305 Go Canes exactly why we need a wide receivers coach. And let me explain to you why I wanted to answer that. We've got like 15 analysts, okay? And by the way, there's a guy on this team that was a hell of a wide receiver at Duke that coaches that wide receiver group, and that's Mr. Varner, right? Donovan Varner, if I have his name right. He's a hell of a wide receiver. The guy's coaching these wide receivers. So I don't – the whole thing of having a wide receivers coach or having a specific guy coaching a specific, position, sometimes, I get it. But, when you have 15 analysts, like some of these high-profile teams, some of these big-time college programs do, you got guys like Varner, you got some other guys there that are sitting there and all they do is work with the wide receivers all day. And Varner's a good guy to have on your team. He was coaching. He was a wide receivers coach previously, right, before he came to us.
Yeah.
So now he's an analyst with us, but he's working with these wide receivers every day. And you start to see, I mean, look, Frank Ponce, Coach Ponce is no slouch when it comes to coaching wide receivers. Neither is Josh Gaddis. None of those guys are slouches when it comes to this. They know technique. They understand how to coach these guys. And you see the difference right there. You just saw the difference this Saturday with how they were running their routes. The route tree, all the concepts were a lot better, a lot crisper. You saw them catching the ball that they were dropping initially. You still saw a couple of drops, but you see them working and working together and playing much better. The last thing I want to mention, I want to go around the horn 2 seconds really quick with everybody. Are you concerned? And I'll start with you, DJ. Are you concerned with the play or the regression of Jalen Knight? I know we saw that wheel route. He looked really good on that wheel route. He beat that guy. However, there's something missing there with Knight. And he's healthy now. So I don't know if we can talk really about his injuries. I think at this point, is it because he's been injured most of the season? We obviously saw him fumble. He has fumbled in the past. He has had some issues with fumbles in the past. Are we seeing a regression with Jalen Knight? Are you concerned about his level of play, or do you think he can kind of pick it back up?
I think he can pick it back up. I think he just needs to continue getting the opportunities. I mean, we saw what he did, for example, in the passing game, and Miami did a good job of involving the running backs in the passing game. He caught 2 passes for 56 yards, and it was good to see the running backs get involved in the passing game. But in any event, I think he is just lacking explosiveness, and I think he can get back on track. But I think it's going to take a while. So I'm not worried yet, but I'm going to be interested to see if he can kind of gain that speed burst and that explosive ability that he's, kind of been known for back. Because if he doesn't get that back, then I think we should be worried.
Vish, it's funny. Les says. By the way, we'll talk about that FSU game. By the way, in a second, because I want to mention something about that. But should we should call that wheel route 15 times every game? Yeah, I get that. Vish, to me, and DJ brought this up, right, about getting Jalen the ball more, getting him more opportunities. Look, to me right now, excuse me. Bottom line is Henry Parrish is the best running back on this team right now. He's shown it, right? He works hard. He practices hard. He does everything right on the field during the game. He does everything right off the field right now. He's motivated. He's ready to go. That's our RB1, if you ask me. However, yes, I still think you do need to get the ball in Jalen Knighton's hands because he's explosive, because he can do so many things. But we have noticed that he has, dropped the ball on Saturday, fumbled the ball as well, not running how he maybe did run last year. Are you concerned with his play? Do you think he'll kind of put it all together and start to be a little more productive and be better?
Well, I mean, I agree with what you said about Parrish being the number one guy, but I mean, I've been on that train before Knighton came back from injury the first time. Once I saw Parrish, and I was like, that's your main back. Yeah. With that said, I mean, I don't think it's that dissimilar to the TVD situation. There's a better player in there, and frankly, we don't have the luxury with, and it's kind of in the chat now, but with the injuries to Chaney and the Citizen, to have that talent not playing. So you just got to work through it. Whatever you got to do. I don't think he's confident right now. The fumble, the draw up, you got to understand how these guys tick, right? Like he 100% blames himself for that loss. 100%, sure. Right?
Sure.
We know 100 people made mistakes. There's a million plays in the game. It's never one player's fault. He's 100% blaming himself. And to me, it's important to get him back out there and have success. He's too talented. We don't have a lot. We don't have a deep roster. We got to get him more touches and rehabilitate him. But you got to always weigh that against deserving playing time. And frankly, so far he really hasn't. Not in relation to Parrish. So, but I think same thing with TVD. We know there's a better player in there, and we got to try and get it to come out. So it's on the coaches to kind of figure out what's going on there and get him in the right mindset. Because when he's in the right mindset, he's a great player. We've seen it. And so it's kind of, ironic. We're looking at him and, TVD before guys we've seen perform over an extended period of time, all of a sudden not performing. It's easier to say there's a better player in there. Whereas if it's someone that's never performed, it's kind of like, send him to the bench. But we need Jalen Knighton. We need him playing well. So they just got to get him to get this out of it. Like, all right, this happened. It's in the past now. Let's move forward and hopefully get, some performances out of him, because the one thing our offense is definitely lacking is explosive plays, and he can bring that. So that's where we got to get him back in there.
Blue, really quick for a minute or two here. First of all, the first two-part question for you. Are you concerned by Jalen Knighton's play so far? And number two, were you surprised to see, because I was, Lucia Stanley actually played, had some snaps and some crucial moments, right? And some big third downs, some big plays. I got a little bug running around here, it's driving me crazy. Were you surprised to see him as opposed to a guy like that, or even Jalen, right? Were you surprised about that, and are you concerned with Rooster right now?
No, I'm not concerned with him. You got to use him better. You got to use him to his strengths, and then the way they are running him now is not his strengths, especially. When Vish was alluding to, they're up front, we're getting beat, but what's happening is you're getting outmanned up front, and he's not one of those guys. Best thing too, and I pointed this out to Coach James Franklin from Penn State, was at the Dillard game the other night, and I was talking about the kid Chris Johnson, and I said and also talked to Chris Johnson. I said, this is a guy who everybody's enamored with because he's so fast. But in reality, he's a kid you need in space. He's not a tackle-to-tackle runner, especially when they're getting outmanned up front. He's a really good back, but he's not a great back. But what he is, he's effective coming out of the backfield, because if he has to come up against a linebacker or a safety, he'll take him to the house every single time. So they got to utilize him more that way. On your question about Stanley, the whole press box was devastated. How could you not? You got a guy, and I'll tell you what, if they don't start using Dad more, he'll be off. He'll be gone. And I don't blame him, because I will tell you guys, there's a role player for everything. And you're 100% right about Parrish. He's the best back on the team in between the 20s. But when you get in towards the red zone, you can't take a guy like that out. And listen, all the reporters, all the analysts in the press box 100% agreed. Stanley, it was kind of a joke. What is he doing in there when and he's a transfer guy, came in. When you got a guy who's been in this system now for a couple of years, knows it, has been dependable inside, getting 4 and 5 yards a carry. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year. Yeah. To me, it was really because I'm on his train, not because I think he's great, but I think he's effective. And again, my thing is I get a lot of heat for my support of Corey Flagg. But again, is he great? No, but he's effective. And that's what you're all about now. Who's going to produce? It's not who's going to look great on the field and who's big and who's fast. It's who's going to get the job done. And I think that's the answer to that. But everybody was really surprised. I mean, to put it mildly, that he was in there.
Yeah, it was surprising. But I'll tell you one thing that I keep hearing a lot of, and I kind of won't mention names or not, but I keep hearing a lot the big C word, right? It's the big C word, and what I mean by that is culture. And from what I understand, and I'm not directing this toward Thad. I think there's a lot of players on this team right now that the reason they're not playing is because they're not doing things the right way. And I know that Mario is trying to change a lot of that. And so therefore, and I don't know if I agree with the whole teaching guys a lesson because of, you got to do a little bit of that, right? It is what it is. You have to do a little bit of that to see if guys are going to be able to, quote unquote, fall in line and start to respect the culture that they are trying to instill in this program. However, could he be a part? I don't know. I don't want to speculate on who are culture issues or having these problems. Again, he mentioned it in the press conference as well, right? Like he knows he came in here and he knew what he signed up for. He knew it was going to be a big issue. He knew that to change the culture of this program, he was going to have to do a lot of things that people were not going to like and that people were going to have an issue with. Players, coaches, fans, parents, whatever the case is, he knows that he was going to have this. And he said it. He said it at the end of the press conference on Saturday. He said it again today, right? Like he knows that he has a ton of work to do here, maybe more than people thought that he did. He's got a lot of work to do. And the most important thing I think that's wrong with this team, because from a talent perspective, I think that we have enough talent, if not more talent than UNC. We should have beat them, right? From a talent I'm not talking about from a cohesion perspective, right? Because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't play together as a team, you're not going to win football games, right? But from a talent perspective, I have no doubt in my mind that they can compete with anybody in the ACC. The problem is, again, of course, there's some depth issues, but it's also a culture thing. These people, you mentioned it, Blue, right? What Manny left here, okay, was a lack of culture, a lack of respect for the game, a lack of a lot of things aside from just talent alone. Corey Flagg, yeah, he may not be the greatest player that Miami has ever seen. But I'll tell you what, I focused on him a lot during that game. He was putting Daryl Jackson had a monster game. Okay. And he was putting these guys on the defensive line in position and shifting them over the whole entire game. And they were being very productive. And he had a really good game as well. He is the type of guy that you want to have in there the whole time because he is going to put players in position to make plays. He is not the most athletically gifted guy. We get that. But he's a smart player. He knows what he's doing out there. And he's part of the right culture for this program. And that is what's really important for this team. And it sounds so cliche. Oh, we need to change the culture, but it's worked for the team, for the other team that dribbles the ball and puts it in the hoop for how long now? And I know that again, that's cliche to say, but that's exactly what they do right over there. And they may not have the best team always, but they win. And that's what's important. And it takes time to build that. And people, I think, are under the misconception that Mario's going to be able to turn around the culture and change it in 5 games. We need to stop. We need to take a step back and realize that this is going to take a year. This is going to take a year and a half. This is going to take 2 years. We're talking about a complete culture change where there's only 25 to 30 to maybe 35 guys that are really on the train right now and are really changing that culture. And then there's other guys that aren't or aren't yet. It's going to take some time.
But I also think, we haven't been good in so long. There's a culture of losing.
Yeah,
to be honest, that's not on the individual level. You have to this season has just gotten off to like a start that no one saw coming in terms of like losing to Middle Tennessee. It's snowballing now where, they're human. It's in your head. When you expect to win, things happen that allow you to win because you're confidently making those plays. You always know, like, I just need one more play, something good will happen. We're like in the opposite.
Yep.
These are kids that have not won a lot of games. I mean, it was 2 years ago, Manny's first or second year where Derek King kept like putting up 400 yards by himself and we'd win 42-41, right? So we got to like 8 wins. These kids weren't even around for that Malik Rozier team that in 2017, right? So that was their best season. Like this is when stuff starts going wrong, it's human. Here we go again, right? So I don't even know that's on the individual level. The only way you can do that, I know it's cliche. You start winning games and they start believing in themselves. They start practicing better. They play better. It all spirals. And I tweeted about this, but you never know when it's going to kind of flip. Like if you look at our 99 team
right,
and compare it to our 2009 team, they don't look that different. One of them was about to become the greatest team in college football history. The other one got the coach fired the next year. These things there's such fine margins. And once you get in that right mindset, like you said, Jazz, the culture, it perpetuates. That's why the team in the Heat, that's why they can pull in these guys that other teams don't want and fit them in. It's because when you step in that building, you feel it there.
Yep.
Right? And we don't have that right now. And like you said, it's going to take time to get that. But when you start winning games, it will snowball. We're doing things the right way. It's just so many little things went wrong. It was just like, and I will say to the team's credit, they kept getting up. We got 4 or 5, like, that's it. Like, we're done plays. And they still kept coming back right down to the last play of the game. They were still in it.
I honestly thought we were going to win that game at the end there, right?
I mean, at that point, I resigned myself to something horrible and painful was going to go wrong. But they kept fighting. Like, I will say, when they kicked that field goal to go up by 10, I was like, there's no way we're losing by 10. We are going to go score. And we're going to have a shot to win this game. Yep. And then we're not going to, because that's the way the season's going. But we're not just going to lose by 10. And I will say, I think Kevin Steele's defense is frankly struggling a lot of busts, a lot of giving up 3rd and 4th and longs that you cannot have if you're going to win. That play call on their last drive on 3rd down, brilliant. He knew what the play was. He took, like you said, his smartest defender and said, don't even mess with the running back. Let someone else tackle the running back. You go get the quarterback. He was on May so quick he couldn't even react. Yep. That was a brilliant play call and brilliant execution. And frankly, we haven't seen a lot of that. Defensively, that was awesome. Yeah. That was a winning play, and unfortunately, it didn't pay off. But we need more of those plays. This is a critical down. We're going to blow their play up. If we get a little bit more of that, we're this close to winning these games. So I think it can turn over pretty quickly. And once you start winning, then that culture, then everyone wants to be a part of this, right?
Right.
So it just takes a little bit.
Biggest thing I want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball, because you mentioned it, Vish, right? Well, like obviously we made some adjustments in the second half. Only let them score 6 points, which is absolutely great. It's incredible. You saw some we'll call it how we see it, right? Cam Kitchens missed, completely screwed up on one play. It is what it is. It happened, right? He missed, it was blown coverage on that 74-yard touchdown. UNC called the exact play. They knew they were going to run that play. They saw it against Middle Tennessee. They exploited it. Cam Kitchens made a mistake. Too many eyes in the backfield. And Kevin Steele mentioned this, right? It was, I think, what did he say? Eye violations is what they're called. Eye violations, right? If I'm not mistaken, where your eyes are not in the right place. And this is happening a lot to our defensive backs. And I think it's a matter of time before they start to realize where their eyes need to be at all times. And that's going to take some time as well, because if you're used to running a certain type of defense and you're not confident in what your guy next to you is going to do or what you're going to do, you're going to end up getting caught, with your pants, with your pants down, right? You're going to be looking into the backfield. You're going to be looking in the wrong place. And that's why they scored on that 74-yard touchdown. It happens again on third downs, third and longs, fourth and longs, right? There was some plays on defense that just made no sense to me. And that is what they need to clean up. Blue, I want to talk about this one. I'll go around the horn on defense because this is the one that really, really boggled my mind. Everybody knew that on third and long, okay, when they spread everybody out, all right, it was an empty backfield, and it was Drake May in the backfield, that it was going to be a quarterback draw. So they didn't have a spy. It's hard to get a spy from what I understand. It's hard to get a spy on a quarterback when you've got empty backfield. You've got them spread out wide, all five. You got 5 wideouts spread wide. You've got an empty backfield. It's kind of hard to have a spy because that back has to go to one of the, to cover. However, there needs to be a way that you can make an adjustment there, and you have to know, right? You have to be obvious. You have to know that this is the play that's coming right now. You're going to spread the ball, and you're going to call a quarterback draw there. Are you, I don't want to say concerned by the defensive play, but what would you have liked to have seen more? And I'll follow-up question to that. Why did Gilbert Frierson only play 9 snaps the whole game, when 2 years ago he was one of the top players on this defense, if not the top player on this defense, one of the leaders on this defense? I know he's the kind of guy that's going to go out there, he's going to give 150%. I think he's one of the guys that may buy in to this team, to this culture, and he's going to go out there and he's going to give you everything, and he's a damn good player. Why is he only getting 9 snaps?
Well, that's a question.
I'm sure he's going to get more now, right?
Yeah. Now he's going to get more. Nobody had an answer. I mean, I think that was one of the questions that was asked today or on Saturday in the post-game press conference. And, he said I remember what the answer was, that, we're feeling our way in with a lot of these guys in different situations. And, he says, and again, I know people hate to hear it, but Miami's not going to sabotage themselves just because everybody thinks that this guy should be playing or that. It's if he didn't have a good week of practice, there's nothing to say that he needed to get in there. And I think that's what happened. I think the guys who play, that's why, because here's the answer to your question too on Jaleel Skinner and whoever else stepped up. He said they had real good weeks of practices and they had to find a way to get them in the game. Now, obviously, Frierson has way too much experience, to ease him into anything. He should be there from the beginning, and you're 100% right. But I don't have an answer for it. I mean, I don't have an answer for a lot of things that they're doing right now. But again, I'm not out there, and neither are the media. They only get out a certain amount of times, and that's the thing. People could speculate all they want, and they could, have every opinion they want. But if you're sitting in a room typing away or, practicing what questions you're going to ask and not watching the actual play, there's nothing you could say. You could speculate because everything's pure speculation. That's all it is. I mean, you could say what you want to say and how come this guy's not doing that, but there's got to be a root to everything. And in the way I feel, I've always been like someone who says, well, this guy should be starting. I can't believe he's not starting. I said, do you really think that Mario Cristobal is going to sabotage this team, especially year one when he's trying to set, an example just because you think that this guy should be getting more playing time? There's a reason why. There is a reason why. And you've seen it. How can you target one guy 9 times in one game and don't even throw to him the next? It's either because the scheme doesn't fit what he does well, or he didn't have a good week of practice. And, he dropped ball after ball, and all of a sudden he drops the first ball, and you go, well, geez, he dropped 11 the other day, and now he's still dropping them. I'm not going back to him. And I think the same thing happens on defense. If a guy gets beat, and then all of a sudden you say, well, how come he's not going to him? Well, because he got beat all week in practice, and maybe somebody else stood out and somebody worked harder. there's got to be an answer for everything, Jazz. I mean, you know that. I mean, but do I have the definitive one? No, I don't.
It's things we don't see. It's things we don't know about.
100%.
It's
Yeah,
also
100%.
even,
But that's the way it is with everything, Vish.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. You know, you can't just all of a sudden just make a statement and goes, well, Jesus, how come that guy's starting over him? Because we don't know where the root of it all came from.
Sure.
It's also even more important, given the current phase of this project that we're at, that he emphasizes practicing well even more. You got to build those habits in. Frankly, like, it's more important to reward the practice playing time right now than to say, well, this guy plays well during games. Because if you're going to get to where we're trying to go, we need to upgrade the talent. It needs to practice well and play well in games. That's what good programs do. So
you're right.
If you're trying to set the culture as a head coach, you cannot reward poor practice habits with playing time.
100%.
You're just going to tell the whole team practice doesn't matter then.
Because what's going to happen inevitably is they're going to come to practice and not give two crap.
Right, because it doesn't matter, because they're going to put me in the game anyway.
And you'll have exactly. You're going to have no intensity. So you have to set the bar somewhere. And for those people who always say, well, practice isn't important. It is. It's everything. I mean, because if not, if you come to practice and kind of laze through plays or, don't go after a ball that you should or make a tackle, it's going to reflect in a game. You're going to do it in a game and I don't care what anybody says. That may be the best thing. You practice how you play. I mean, I can't reiterate that more. Everyone goes, oh, well, that's just to try to get everybody. No, it's not. It's a fact. And that's how games, and Jazz, you play baseball. If you have a pitcher and he's getting lit up, in BP or where, like inter squad games, what are you going to start him for? I mean, he can't even get your own guys out. So, and it happens. I mean,
probably an extension of that is, if you're a hitter and you're just screwing around in practice and in BP and like not actually like taking it seriously, you're not going to hit well in the game.
No, exactly.
Right. And I mean, this is the same thing. And when you're like, why are we out of sync? Why is it? Probably because we don't practice well.
There's a reason
why. Like, why are the drops there? But maybe because we're not like, why is the passing game slightly off until this week?
100%.
A lot of that's because we're not doing it well in practice. You're not going to just show up in a game and do it.
100%.
Les, you got a question here for us. We want to talk about making mistakes. Look at Stevenson, -7 against Texas A&M, not covering the receiver on the 7, I guess, each game. That's 7 points. Lost us that game.
Well, he got beat over the top against Middle Tennessee and against UNC. I still think those were coverage busts and not really on him. They're supposed to.
But again,
supposed to be there.
It's that whole thing of eye violation. Sometimes their eyes are not in the right place, and he's not necessarily getting beat off the ball, right? Because I don't think anybody's just beat him one-on-one. I still think he's a good cover corner. He just got beat on some busted coverage.
He's injured, right? Like he might not play for another reason, but
he might be out next week. Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know the case, but
I think they say he's quote in the protocol, which I'm reading between lines as concussion, but they didn't actually say that was what it was. But
right, they did say that. You're right. So I still think, Stevenson is fine. Stevenson's fine.
Look, it's just like everything else with this team. You do not pass defend with one player. You don't run defend with one player. You don't have a passing game with one player. We are out of sync.
Yes.
Across the board slightly, and that's the frustrating. We're not like bad. We're so close to being good, and that's why it's so frustrating. Because and that's why we're sitting here talking about that one play on the goal line. Why didn't we make it? That one drop.
Exactly.
When you get to that stage, you're almost there. And I know no one wants to hear that.
Yeah.
If we just can win a game, I think it'll start going the other direction.
Yeah, Gary, I think some of those busts have been that combination. But I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like, the one time, I think that one time you noticed that Cam made a big mistake. Cristobal wasn't having it. He pulled him. He put in Avonte Williams. And it was a good series, but let's be honest. Let's put the cards out on the table right now. Cam Kitchens is one of your best defensive backs, if not your best defensive back out there. He's gonna make some mistakes, but when it comes to IQ, when it comes to talent, I mean, there's probably nobody better on this team than Cam Kitchens right now. He's still gonna make you a lot of plays. He might have some busted coverages like he has had recently, but I think that's just a learning curve now with this Kevin Steele defense. I think they're gonna get it together. I think he'll be fine. I do want to see some. This is not, again, I don't know what's going on in practice, right? I don't know what's going on, but I do maybe want to see, like a Brian Bailiff. I mean, Brian Bailiff was I think is a really good safety. I think getting him out there, maybe getting him some playing time. I'm not sure what's going on with Avonte, whether he's just not picking it up, whether it's again a
like you
culture
said, he
thing.
did get in the game. He was in on that touchdown I mentioned earlier, where they kind of like threw a moon ball, and he was one of the ones that actually I don't even think he technically missed the tackle because he kind of just dove into the ground before getting to the receiver.
There's something going on there with him, and I'm not sure what it is.
It's hard when you're not getting game time. Then all of a sudden you're in like he hardly played against like Bethune and Southern Miss and these chances where you'd hope to get him some game action. So
it's kind of weird.
Hard. I mean, I'm always sympathetic to these kids, and it's just hard when you're not playing, and then all of a sudden like, get out there and play and try to have that like crispness and situational awareness. It's really hard.
Hey, Blue. Speaking of players that they get on us about, and Vish and DJ too. DJ Ivy is doing all right, man. He had another decent game again, right? Didn't look too bad again. Now I saw him make some pretty good tackles as well. Like he wrapped some guy up and threw him to the ground. So like, there's some guys that are starting to get it, and some guys that are just not on the train yet. And you're gonna see that. Like the linebacker core still needs a lot of work. You saw Wes play a lot, and he looked really good in the game. You saw Keontre play, and he looked all right. You're still not getting enough of Chase and maybe even Caleb Johnson, which is a little odd to me as well. I'm not sure what's going on with Caleb Johnson. Really not getting a lot of time. Wayman Steve saw left with an injury, but he's another guy that's been struggling a little bit. But Corey Flagg has kind of kept that linebacker core together right now. So I think that we're going to see them. Hopefully, right? Obviously, we're going to obviously hope to see them kind of pick it up and put it together a little bit. And, that Kevin Steele defense is not an easy one to pick up. There's so many different schemes, so many different formations, so many different things that he does. It's going to take some time, guys. So I'm just, again, we lost by 3. And that game, we lose by 40 last year, and we kept mentioning it about the whole practice thing, Blue and Vish. Practice, this is not the Manny Diaz team, right? Where if you practice really good, like Leonard Taylor and James Williams and some of these other guys that didn't see the field until later on when it was forced, right? When he was forced to show some of these guys. This is not this. This is not it, right? You practice well, you're going to play. And that's what Mario's all about. He wants the best players out there that are going to be able to execute.
I'll tell you something. I learned everything I need to know about Manny Diaz when he put Tate Martell in that bowl game. This is a kid who quit the program.
Yep.
And then came back for the bowl game, and everyone on social media, which Manny Diaz was way too concerned with, was like, play this guy. He had no business playing that game.
Nope.
He subbed him in. He looked terrible because he hadn't even been with the team. To me, that was like, that's it. This guy is never going to succeed. You can't do that. So to your point, Jazz, there was no correlation. This dude wasn't even with the team, and he put him in. So I mean, there was no correlation. And this is what Mario's having to undo.
Right, exactly.
You don't lose those habits overnight because there's a new coach. So to your point, if they practice well, they will play. And he's shown that. He's put young. We saw actually this week in particular, we saw Nigel Lee Kelly and Wes Bisonte get a lot of playing time. He'll put if you earn it, he will play you. He will absolutely play you. I mean, everyone's complaining that Colby Young didn't get in until late in the game. Made 2 huge catches. He had him in there on a critical fourth quarter drive. So as much as you want to say, why wasn't he in the first quarter? He trusted him on one of the most important drives of the game.
But that's a crazy thing, though, right? Like it's crazy in a good way. I'm not saying it in a bad way.
But so much of football is situational, right? So it's what the defense is in. It's what you're trying to run. How much of the playbook does he know? What packages is he practicing? Where are you trying to use them? Like, it's not as simple as just like this guy should be playing all the time.
Right. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see them play against Virginia Tech this weekend. It's like my segue there, guys. Real quick before we get on out of here, Virginia Tech, not a very good football program this year, fellas. They are 2-4 right now. Or 2-1
and 4.
2 and 4, is it? Okay. Struggling a little bit over there. Not a great team. Okay. Always tough to play in Blacksburg, though. Okay, so it's always going to be a big game, especially
homecoming too.
It's
sold out.
Sold out Blacksburg. if you've ever been there. I haven't been there, but I know that I think Vish, you've been to Blacksburg, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, twice.
yeah, so that's an electric crowd over there. That's a crazy place to play, the middle of nowhere out there. So always going to be a tough game, regardless. I think that Miami's going to have to come out and and put a hurting on them like they should. Okay,
Yeah.
like
They should.
Um,
Enter Sandman, though. It's a noon. You don't have to enter Sandman at 9 o'clock at night. Like,
no, it's at 12:30. Thank God.
Yeah, thank goodness. I'm telling you. And listen, if everybody's calling for Mario's head down there, look at the success that Virginia Tech had with Beamer all those years, and Brent Pye's already hearing it.
I know.
I mean, they got to put Beamer in the Hall of Fame twice.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that dude was a miracle. I mean, he turned them. Obviously, for us, we remember he made that into a legitimate powerhouse program that could beat anyone and was always top 5. And like you said, Jazz, where it's located, and there is a lot of talent in the state, but not like Florida levels. And frankly, Virginia is much better located to capitalize on that. And the fact that he just sucked all the talent up to the point that Virginia basically didn't exist as a football program because Virginia Tech was so dominant. I mean,
look at those areas, Vish. Yeah. You got Virginia Beach, and you got Norfolk, and you got all that
Hampton
whole
Roads
area.
All
the Hampton Roads area is really extremely. That area, like Houston, is a lot like South Florida because they've, you got the Michael Vicks and the Allen Iversons and the Ronald Currys and guys that are always coming out of there, and they've done really well with that talent. And see, right now,
well, Beamer did since he's left.
That's what I'm saying. Beamer did.
I want to answer this question from Les because I know he posted it earlier. Guys, how does the U finish the year? So I think this is and maybe you guys want to chime in on this also. I think Miami's actually trending up the right way right now, and I know it's weird to say that considering we've just lost 3 straight games, but I feel like there's a trend going up. And look, I honestly think that FSU is kind of trending downward a little bit, and that's not because I'm biased against them or anything like that, because they're not. It's a decent team, it's a decent program, and they're having injury issues just like everybody else in college football. So for me, the injury thing is not it. But for me, and someone mentioned this yesterday. I think Flo was the one that mentioned this. If Jordan Travis doesn't play absolutely excellent every single game, they're in trouble because it's Jordan Travis. And that is it. Their defense is half decent because they've got Jared Verse, who I think is actually a little hurt now. They've got Jamie Robinson. They've got some good guys over there, but I think they're actually trending downwards. And I think Miami is kind of trending upwards a little bit. And you start to see that they're struggling with some teams. They're making some boneheaded mistakes that they didn't make early on in the season, the first 2 or 3 games. So if you're asking me, win or lose, I'm liking Miami's chances this year against a team like FSU. I know it's too early to tell because there's still 4 or 5 games before that happens, but I'm answering your question. I think that the U is trending up a little bit. I think FSU is trending downwards, and I think there's an opportunity there if we continue to progress and get better on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball that we could be in for a good one there. So I don't know if you guys wanted to kind of say anything on that.
Yeah, for me, it's I think these next 3 games, starting with this Saturday, are going to dictate how we perform against FSU. To be honest, this season's teetering a little bit. We're still getting back up off the mat and fighting the next game. Yeah. You can only get knocked out. If we go lose to Virginia Tech, the bottom at some point the bottom's going to fall out, right? I mean, you've got to win a game. If we can win that, the next game after that is Duke at home, then at Virginia. Virginia's really bad this year. You're sitting there. You could definitely be heading. We should expect. I know we lost to Middle Tennessee, so maybe we shouldn't expect
5-3.
We should be 5-3 on a 3-game winning streak going into that game. Now they're playing Clemson this week, so they're going to lose. And then they have Georgia Tech, which they should win. Although Georgia Tech's won 2 in a row all of a sudden after firing the coach, but it's probably 2 5-3 teams is my guess going into that game. But I think we'll have the momentum. It's in Miami, so.
Yeah,
I like our chances. I will say if we lose if we lose this weekend, it's going to get ugly.
Are we having a show next week if we lose?
Yeah, the show's going to be even better.
We got some good transfers in basketball. We can preview the basketball season next week.
We got a really good commit, right? Really good
the basketball's looking good. So we'll just pivot quickly. It's almost time.
Baseball's still in the top 25 too. So hey, you never know. But anyways, I digress. That'll be interesting. We'll definitely have a pre and post game show for you on the for the Virginia Tech game. Game time is 12:30, so expect the pregame show to be around 11:30. So we'll make sure we do that for you guys, and then the post game show as well.
Just one other footnote on Virginia Tech. We talked about this a little bit this summer, but they've changed the scheduling model. This is the last time we're going to play them for a little bit.
Wow, that's
because they're not one of our natural pod rival, whatever the new. So this is
they played them every year, Vish, since the Big East, and
we're not going to be doing that anymore.
Wow, what a shame! What a shame.
Our teams are. I think it's Louisville, Florida State, and what was the other one? It's
not
Boston. Oh, Boston College.
I think you guys get a crowd for it.
Look at DJ knew that.
DJ's circling that one on his calendar.
Hey! If you guys want to come up to the cold Massachusetts, I'll be happy to.
We should do that.
Yeah, we should do that. We should do that.
We should go to Boston for that game. Man. That'll be awesome.
Maybe we'll do that. But so it is kind of the end of an, as Blue said, an era. I mean, this is 30 years of playing Virginia Tech. It became by far the marquee rival in the Big East. It was must watch for the whole country. And it carried through to the ACC, and it's kind of sad to see it go. We're still going to play them occasionally, but it's one of those. We use the schedules to come and be like, because Florida doesn't play us, right? When are we playing FSU? When are we playing Virginia Tech? And losing that, it's part of modern football. We lose all of these rivalries, but still, it stinks.
Gary, you got room for a couple of Six Rings Canes hosts on that trip to BC next year, man? We'll have to talk about it. Anyways, make sure you guys tune in this weekend, this Saturday at 11. It looks like it's going to be an 11:30 start for pregame show, and then we'll go on right after postgame as well. I'm sorry, right after the game, we'll have the postgame show as well. Make sure you guys keep it locked there. Thank you, everybody, for joining the show. Make sure you follow us on Six.
Before we get to our last sponsor, I do have a Fat Bear update.
Yes, follow us
on the finalists.
We got Six Rings Canes. Oh yeah, let's hear what are the finalists.
We got the finalists. So my bear made to the finals. I'm pumped up. Like 901 was the one I picked from the beginning.
901, baby.
It's going against 747. That's your finalist. You got to vote tomorrow, starting at noon.
747 is a big man.
I know. I'm concerned. Although she already took out Otis, who was the defending champion. 901 took out Otis, so I'm feeling confident now. Dominated today's semifinal. So.
All right, I'm gonna have to vote tomorrow.
This is the last. This is what's left of the bracket. This is all it is. October 11 finals.
Wow,
it is almost done. Fat Bear Week is almost over. But it's tomorrow. Get in there at noon. Vote for 901 on my behalf.
And by the way, in some MLB.
Oh, did you hear about this? There was a scandal yesterday.
Yes, I heard there was.
Oh my God! Someone like. Bots, it was right before the voting. Yeah, they were able to detect it, but they put a bot in there. They voted for Hawley a bunch of times to swing those election results, but they caught it and threw out the votes. 747 almost got screwed there.
They're even doing it for the damn Fat Bear.
They added a caption that's sweet today. There wasn't a caption on the page before. There was today, like one of those human verification things where click the stoplight or whatever. But anyway, get in there tomorrow and vote for 901.
Blue, what happened to your Mets, man?
Yeah, let's not even talk there. So,
playoff baseball is fun.
We're Red Sox fans, so we
had a good weekend for South Florida. If you're a Met fan too, the Dolphins, the Canes,
everything. Yeah. How about those Mariners? How about those Mariners, though, baby?
Yeah, they're doing pretty good.
Blood in the playoffs.
Well, you know what? Even if your team lost, maybe you could make some money with Prize Picks.
Yeah, there you go. Good segue.
Another Prize Picks for you here. Check us out, prizepicks.com, the official sponsor, the official fantasy, daily fantasy football app for 5 Reasons Sports Network. Make sure you check them out. Go to prizepicks.com. When you sign up, make sure you put in the code 5, F-I-V-E. It's the code 5, and they will match your initial deposit up to $100. It's real simple. It all depends on how much money you want to make. What's great about it is that you can mix and match different players from different leagues, different teams, different everything. Make sure you choose. Here's how it works: choose between 2 to 5 players Okay, then you're going to pick the over-under on their individual categories, and that's how you win. It all depends on how much you want to win is how many players you pick. Make sure you go to prizepicks.com, choose between 2 to 5 players, choose the over-under on their individual categories, and just watch you guys rack up some cash, baby. 5 Reasons Sports, prizepicks.com, code word 5, F-I-V-E. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Make sure you check them out, prizepicks.com. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. Vish, DJ, Blue, always a pleasure. Make sure you keep it locked on Twitter at 6ringscanes.
Real quick before you end, if you guys missed the beginning of the show, check it out. We had a new little intro sequence there.
Little intro. We'll have a new little outro as well, by the way. Keep it locked for the pregame show this weekend and the postgame show here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Subscribe, smash the like button, give us some love. We'll definitely return the love as well. Again, follow us on Twitter at 6ringscanes. Check us out here every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. 5 Reasons Sports Network. Go Canes. We'll see you guys.
The 6 Ring Cane Show. Yeah. The 6 Ring Cane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Cane Show.